Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. So welcome back to my channel. And there was some ghastly tidings, I think it was yesterday, about those aid workers who were killed in Gaza. Many people are saying murdered. Now, one of them is a Palestinian and the others are Western foreigners. And that's what's really got Occidental attention. Now, the late Robert Fisk certainly didn't agree with him on everything, but he was a veteran Middle East correspondent, spoke Arabic and Farsi. Anyway, he came up with this exchange rate theory, like let's take the news in the USA. If one American was killed, that was worth 10 Americans being killed, 10 Israelis being killed in terms of news bulletins, and 100 Palestinians, or something like that. That there's this disproportionality in how human life is valued, which is obviously shocking. So go back to the 2009 Gaza war, when 100 Palestinian civilians were killed for every Israeli civilians, 100 to 1. I'll say it again, 100 to 1, to see the gross disproportionality in the use of force by the Israeli so-called defense forces. Anyway, so it's really horrific what's been going on. And I know what happened on the 7th of October. So about 1,200 people were killed in Israel that day by Hamas. The majority of those killed were civilians. They were deliberately killed. If you purposefully kill civilian, when it's not part of some military attack, when it's not minimal collateral damage, that is murder. And so Hamas did that knowingly. They abducted was about 300 people. Some of these people seem to have been tortured and raped and so on. And yes, all that is abhorrent. But none of that is excusatory of crimes against humanity in the other direction. And who started it? Was it 7th of October? Does it go back to, I don't know, Ariel Sharon going to Al-Aqsa Mosque in 2000, or what? Or the Intifada in 1987, or the 1967 war, or 1948, or, you know, Aliyah in the early 20th century, or wherever you want to go back. We're not going to agree on who started it. We are going to agree how it has to end. Ceasefire now. And I mean, in my tiny, tiny way, I could have been raising my voice like this sooner. I can only ever make an infinitesimally small contribution. Greta Thunberg, for whom I don't have a lot of time, but she is right that no one is too small to make a difference. And surely it's a moral imperative to demand a ceasefire now, because at least 10,000 civilians have been killed. Many more have been wounded. It's a ghastly humanitarian situation, and very little aid is getting through. Israel sometimes deliberately blocking aid. And yes, they do allow in some aid trucks for reasons of presentation, you know, just for public relations. So anyway, 7 people were killed. They're working with the World Central Kitchen. And the thing is, they had coordinated their movements with the IDF. The IDF knew what their vehicles were, where they were moving, when they were moving. One of the vehicles was destroyed, so they got out and got into the other 2, and the second one was destroyed, and the third one was destroyed. So once might be an accident, twice, you know, is carelessness, thrice is surely murder. The IDF are always boasting about their state-of-the-art weaponry, pinpoint accuracy, while they're supposed the most moral military in the world. The most moral military in the world was to kill well over 10,000 people. There's probably more civilians been killed in Gaza in about 5 months than in Ukraine in well over 2 years. Bear in mind, Gaza's got a population of under 3 million, and Ukraine's got a population of about 40 million. Now, the Western world is saying that Putin is a monster, which he is. But how much of an ogre does Netanyahu have to be doing this? And bear in mind, he's been abominated by a significant segment of the Israeli population for a long time. And what he does disgusts and appalls many Israelis too. So, you know, this should go without saying. But to preface my remarks, I'm an outspoken philo-Semite. No one should be mistreated on the grounds of ethnicity, race, nationality, religion, and so on. No one's bad for being Jewish or Muslim, or being Jewish by ethnicity, or being Palestinian or Arab, or so forth. Yeah, I mean, that ought to be blatantly obvious, because whatever you say, any reasoned, proportional, restrained criticism of policies of the Israeli government or the IDF, people will say you're an anti-Semite. They throw that around very tediously. They're not always wrong. There are some anti-Semites who are, you know, unfairly accusing them of things. Was it deliberate or negligence? There comes to a level of criminal negligence. Okay, they knew this was done. They knew where they were going and when. It was very carefully coordinated with them. There's the fog of war, and when an awful lot of munitions are thrown around, yeah, some innocent people are going to get killed. And they accuse Hamas of using them as human shields. The IDF has sometimes used Palestinian civilians as human shields, and the IDF has sometimes tortured people. I'm not saying that every IDF soldier does this, or even most. And I've known some IDF soldiers whom I considered friends. Okay, I know good people do evil things and vice versa. And war can bring out the worst in people. How would you feel if your best friend was whatever killed by the enemy, or your daughter was kidnapped, tortured, raped, and so on? And then just trying to survive. People say, I don't care about rules of morality. I'll just do whatever it takes to maximize my chance of coming home in one piece. The trouble is, this argument is applicable to Hamas as well as the IDF. Anyway, there'll be a lot of whataboutery. So you can still say, yes, Israel is entitled to fight against Hamas and recognize that the IDF has overstepped the mark many, many times and has often been indiscriminate and use a grossly disproportionate level of force. Leveling whole buildings and so on. So many human rights organizations have very well documented what's been going on. So they obviously need aid workers to bring food in. So why would they murder aid workers? Is it an attempt to starve the civilian population into submission? And the Spanish Prime Minister has rightly said that the explanations are inadequate. I mean, that is putting it mildly indeed. So, I mean, it's taken this to make the Western world sit up and listen. And obviously, there's some gallant people in the Western world who realize just how horrific it is. But, the United States is crying crocodile tears. The Biden administration has at least criticized Israel, has at least voted against Israel in the United States, in the United Nations Security Council for the first time in decades. But, that has little effect if you carry on providing with the weapons with which they commit the crimes. If someone says to me, I want to use a gun to commit murder, will you sell me one? I said yes, and I sell them one, then I am equally guilty. It's not just complicity, it's further than that. The United Kingdom government doing likewise. You might say, oh, well, but they can manufacture their own weapons, they've got their own military manufacturing. Nevertheless, it is not a neutral act to do so. Put it this way, would it be a neutral act to sell weapons to Hamas? Oh, you can't compare them to whatever because they're a terrorist organization. They're the elected government of Gaza. I know their views are abominable and they are viciously anti-Semitic. That is true. But I'm sorry to say the Netanyahu government is not much better. And he includes some outspoken racists who have talked about ethnic cleansing. Israel has got such an arsenal at its side, has got nuclear weapons. Gaza's got very, very little, the Hamas people in Gaza. And, they don't have weapons with such accuracy, so they can't afford to be so discriminating. I don't want anyone to get killed. I'm not a pacifist. Anyway, so I would like this to be settled. I would like justice for the Palestinians. And I would like, obviously, the illegal occupation of Palestine to stop. You might say, oh, we haven't occupied that for 20 years. Well, if you still control their land border, their airspace, and their territorial waters, that is illegal occupation. Everything they get in, everything they get out. So keeping them a little above starvation level now. So some children have died of starvation. It is horrendous. It's evil. Anyway, the United States wants some investigation into this. So, Gaza is close to famine as well as being desperately short of medicine and medical equipment and so on. So the United Nations says about half the population are at starvation level. That is horrendous. So a lot of people are going to die avoidably. And so Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal. He is. If you're using food as a weapon of war, of deliberately starving people. Now, I know other countries and other armies have done this in the past and siege warfare, and that is true. But international humanitarian law was not then where it is now. And just because someone else has done wrong doesn't mean you should do this wrong now. The United Kingdom, it cut off food supplies to Germany as much as it possibly could in the First World War, causing 500,000 civilian deaths in Germany. That was morally wrong and possibly illegal at the time. But none of that makes it permissible for Israel to do that likewise, to do that now. Anyway, so, the Israelis deliberately cut off water, drinking water. So anyway, the World Central Kitchen says that the IDF destroyed these cars one after other, and they were doing it on purpose. No mistake. I'm not absolutely sure. But anyway, even if it is a mistake, that is criminal negligence. There's an awful lot of food which can't be shipped there. The United States is at least delivering some food by air, by sea. But killed one was Polish, that's an Indian person as well. Get people out of Gaza, and I'm so disappointed by the Arab and Muslim world not showing solidarity, saying we will take them. There are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, and I know many of them have some feeling for the Palestinians. About how many is it? 2.5 million people, 2.5 million people in Gaza. But some of these Muslim countries are not wealthy at all. So some of them have been willing to arm and fund Gaza, the people in Gaza, the Hamas groups and other Palestinian militants, but would they not find in their hearts to take them in? So yeah, anyway, it's all terrible. And sadly, it looks like Netanyahu is going to get away with it for a long time. So the aid workers' bodies have been removed. Anyway, so the United Nations is not going to move food at night for like 48 hours, which is going to mean even more people are going to die of starvation. So the United Kingdom's protest about this, not stridently enough. It's horrendous. So the United Kingdom should not have been selling arms to Israel for a very long time. Anyway, so it's terrible. So you see how some people get away with murder all the time. Ceasefire now. It's long overdue. And of course, the Israeli hostages should be released unconditionally. Some of the Palestinians helped by Israel should be released as well, who have not had fair trials. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon and donate on PayPal. Goodbye.